post-COVID mobility, strengthening of walking and bicycling. Okay, and well, we have 5 very distinguished people, researchers, having expertise in their own respective areas, who are going to kind of speak on a variety of aspects related to walking and cycling. And without wasting much of time, I would first of all like to invite Mr. Salil Rai Srivastav, who's the OSD Housing and Environment Department, Government of Chhattisgarh, to make his presentation on the paper Adoption of TOD Policy in Naya Raipur, leading to enhancing NMT. Mr. Srivastav, please.
Thank you, sir. Actually, okay. So straight away, I'm coming on to my presentation. Basically, I come from the city of Naya Raipur, which is the latest newly planned city, which is the capital of Chhattisgarh now. We have done almost major infrastructure in the city. However, I am asked to speak only on in terms of the TOD, which for which we are the first city in the country to have adopted the tenets of TOD. I would restrict my presentation only on TOD. So the transit-oriented development, this is a form of urban development that clusters a greater mixture of land uses around a high-quality transport service. The transport node is either a train or a light rail or a bus terminus, is designed to be the focus of the development, and it ideally becomes a community heart. So it is where the people shop, work, meet, relax, and live. The goals of TOD are basically to prevent or discourage the private automobile dependency and encourage the public transportation by making it more comfortable, cost-effective, and end-to-end. Encourage higher density and diversity within the walking distances of public transportation, creating attractive and vibrant places, provide enhanced connectivity by offering a greater choice of motorized and NMT modes. Any intervention, active or passive, which is done in the urban infrastructure to reduce the trip length can be called a tenet of TOD. Trip length is a distance which an individual travels to finish his daily course. So we published our development plan in 2008, which was DP 2031. It also mentioned that BRT would form the core of mass transportation plan for Naya Raipur, with dedicated bus lanes, cycle tracks, and safe pedestrian walkways would complement the BRT and help development of an energy efficient and environmentally sustainable city. The road sections and junctions would be designed to be friendly for children, elderly, and persons with disability. So this is our plan, the master plan, which you can see was already TOD friendly, wherein north to south it is 18 to 20 kilometers, from east to west it is 4 to 5 kilometers. The total area is 80 square kilometer, that is 8,000 hectares. We have a central spine passing through the center of the city, which is 20 kilometer long, 100 meter ROW, and it has facility corridor on either side of it, where all city level facilities are concentrated. Distributed residential sectors, basically in 3 parts, which makes them closer to the capital complex area where the government function is there. All government sits and all government functions are there. Other offices and corporate offices are here, which are also central to the city. We have CBD, the central business districts here, and the IT SEZ. So you can see the whole plan was befitting the TOD, but it was felt that in addition to the existing best planning tenets which we decided for the city, it should also be a pedestrian and transit friendly city. And therefore, in the year 2012, when we were doing the BRTS system under SUTP with the help of the World Bank, we included, we decided to get a study done wherein the baseline studies, the interaction with experts and stakeholders.
Sir, your presentation is not visible. You've not shared it. Yeah. Just a minute.
Yeah, slides are not visible. I think
you should have told me. You should have told me. Let me. Okay. I think.
Please share your presentation.
Yeah. screen. Is it available now?
I think it is coming. Yes, sir. Please make it on slide share mode, sir. Please take it on slide share mode.
So, okay. Is it now available?
Yes, please. Thank you, sir. Please continue.
Okay.
Sorry for
So I will not repeat everything. I'll just come up to the plan just to tell you that from north to south it is 18 to 20 kilometer, east to west north 5 kilometers. Facility corridor is central. There is Central Avenue, which is 100-meter ROW, and it has facility corridor around that where all city level facilities are there. This is the capital complex where the state government functions from. All government offices are here. We have CBD, and then the office complex where other offices and corporate offices are there. Then we have the ITSEZ here. So all these residential 3 clusters which are there, which are also close to that. But despite that, while we were doing the BRTS along with the World Bank under SUTP, we decided to make the city as a pedestrian and transit friendly city. Therefore, we conducted a study which included baseline studies, interactions with experts and stakeholders, international best practices on TOD, and organizing charrettes, etc. Thereafter, on the outcome of this, we adopted TOD as a additional chapter in the DP in 2015. Thus, we became the first city in the country to have TOD in our development plan. The basic tenets of Naya Raipur TOD are multimodal transit station, interconnected streets, mixed-use development, walkability, compact development and street-facing buildings, urban placemaking and streetscape designs, bicycle-friendly streets, urban parks and plazas, and architectural variety, well-designed transit stations for high-quality user experience, reduced parking stations, safety and security, crime prevention through environmental designs, market acceptance, and successful implementation. So what we did was the station areas were defined where the BRT nodes were there or the railway stations are there, and then we decided that 400-meter and 800-meter, which we call it as 5-minute walk and 10-minute walk, was marked out of that. The encircled and station area comprises of multiple zones with their own transportation and land use characteristics with a catchment area. So 19 nodes have been identified, and accordingly, then these, as I was discussing, that from the node, 5-minute walk is 0 to 400 meter, where rapid transit stations and associated facilities are there. Then 400 to 800 meter, that is 10-minute walks. Secondary zone extends within this area, and the catchment which is beyond 800 meters. The land uses were defined accordingly in the TOD 5 area, highest density and mixed use. This is to encourage high ridership and provide a mixed use, vibrant activity in the spine. And high levels of amenities such as retail, bike parking, businesses, etc. 400 to 800 meter medium densities and mixed land uses. Density and height of development is stepped down here. Then 800 to 2 kilometer medium and lower density developments, open spaces, linkages and green connections, and mostly the plotted development. The hierarchy of roads were also defined. In the city level, we had 100-meter and 60-meter ROWs, where central carriageways were there with median, on either side NMT and footpaths, then again green verge and service roads. So hierarchy of road widths are defined in such a way that major roads provide access to abutting properties only through the service lanes, no direct entry to the city level roads. The access to the activities inside sectors is made via internal road systems. Major pedestrian corridors combined with cycle tracks run along the city level roads, also passes through the Central Park and other facilities. This is a typical residential sector which is 800 meter by 800 meter. So the basic principles we adopted were high-rise, high-density developments along periphery of sector, facing these BRT shelter nodes, plotted development in residential areas, more in outside TOD zones, enhanced commercial mixed land uses along the city level roads in TOD 5 and TOD 10 areas. We had a lot of greens along the city level roads, which we converted into mixed land use. The multimodal transit hub was also planned, being developed as a determination of the central monumental axis, which is east and west, which is also under construction right now. We gave the maximum priority to an empty public transport system with dedicated lane provisions for BRT were given second priority, which are initially having soft segregation. And once the traffic increases, we will have the hard segregation. We have enough ROW. And last is the private vehicle. But this is a typical section design which I am showing. You can see there are tabletop crossings for the pedestrian and NMT. So the movement of NMT is at grade while vehicular traffic moves up and down. So that is the basic tenet which we have adopted, giving priority to the NMT. This is another picture showing a residential sector with all the roads having the NMT. You can see these segregated. This is the cycle track, the pedestrian pathway, green verge, and the vehicular areas. So the section is, this is MV lane where there's a small green verge, then the NMT of 3 meters, cycle track for 3 meters and 2.5 meter of footpath. We have already done 55 kilometer of such NMT within the city at the city level, and an additional 20 kilometer within the sector number 12, 24, sector 26 and 20 and 30. And another 21 kilometer work is going on. We have already introduced public bike sharing scheme where we run 100 bicycles with 10 shelters, which we are going to increase to now 21 shelters very soon.
Can I please request you to wind up another 1 minute, please?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So we have from the north corridor, along the north corridor, we have railway running through where we have a railway station. Along the western side, we have a railway line coming up. We have BRTS, which is ITS enabled, functional within the city and from Raipur to Naya Raipur. These are typical pedestrian priorities. As I was explaining, design of pedestrian and NMT friendly junctions where paved tabletop crossings are there for seamless movement of pedestrians, bicycle tracks, wheelchairs, strollers, offering universal access, high-speed roads, defined NMT, green belt, median street lighting, and inclusive design. You can see these are all actual photographs. Rotary for traffic management, laybys for undisturbed traffic movement. This is what we have done. Again, LED lighting for the roads. We are the only city having 75 kilometers of network controlled LED lighting and road signages. So these are all actual photographs I have put in. That's all I wanted to convey. Basically, I concentrated only on the NMT and TOD part. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Srivastava. It was a very nice, lucid presentation taking us down the development in Naya Raipur, one of the very exciting township coming. And I wish when this whole concept gets fully implemented on ground, it'll be worth to watch. And it's always better to capture the right-of-ways in the starting itself rather than trying to look for right-of-ways in most of the brownfield developments. So thank you again. Now, it's my pleasure to invite our second speaker, Ms. Pranjali Deshpande, who is presently a consultant with the World Bank. And she is going to make a presentation on pedestrian walkways and cycle tracks. Ms. Pranjali, please.
Rajni, you are on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'll be speaking about Pune. Of course, before going to the
Rajni, sorry to interrupt. Please put it on a slide share mode.
Okay.
PPT mode, sorry. Slideshow.
It is on PPT mode.
Slideshow mode.
Yeah, it is on slideshow mode. Just a sec. Maybe I'll stop and share it again.
Full screen, full screen. Just make it full screen.
Sure. Okay. Can you see it now? No?
Not yet.
Now? Full screen now because I clicked full screen for the audience.
We can't see the slide at the moment.
Now?
Not as yet. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it was stuck, I guess. Okay, sorry for that. Okay. Okay, so I'll be speaking about Pune, how it transformed its mobility sector in terms of before COVID and now what the city is doing. Pune is a city which is in the western part of the country, housing 6.5 million people. It's a cultural and educational hub. This is for those who are not familiar with the city. It's all started with the comprehensive mobility plan of the city, which says that today, even if the private mode share of private vehicles is very high, it's around 50%. The goal is to reduce it to just 10% by 2031, and rest of the movement should happen by walk, bus, and cycle. So this is a very ambitious goal which city has put together. And of course, city is moving towards that, and I'll quickly go through how city is thinking about its mobility. And it all started with the NUDP, which says that streets are for people and not for vehicles. And the city of Pune is really trying to achieve that. So to start with, the city has created its Walk Smart pedestrian policy, which is for the safety and comfort of the citizens. The city has also created urban redesign guidelines, which is kind of a detailed design, how to design the streets, how to do the detailing. And it is not just for the very wide streets of 45 meters, 60 meters. It also gives the options for designing a narrow street of 15 meters as well. There is some noise. Okay, yeah. And the city has also designed a Pune Streets program, which is redesigning almost 100 kilometers of streets in the entire city. And I should tell that this transformation has begun even before the smart cities mission came into picture. So, of course, the smart cities mission is also transforming some of the streets, but even Pune, with its own budgetary provisions, is trying to revamp the streets and redesign it for people for walking and cycling. The city also has the Pune bicycle plan, which has been approved by the general body, by the decision makers, and the goal is to have 400 kilometers of cycle-friendly streets, whether by providing segregated cycle track or say cycle lanes or greenways, etc. And of course, the capacity development is a key in this entire process, because just making policies and projects are not going to help. Just in order to make all these efforts sustainable, the city is also equally thinking about capacity development, where it has got in-house urban design cell. I think Pune is a city where there is in-house urban design cell, and the urban designers are also coordinating with the big urban design firms and also designing neighborhood streets and the intersection. And there is an MT committee, there is a street design committee, and under which there are a lot of capacity development programs which happen for the engineers, newly recruited engineers, and also for the traffic police. Because a lot of times we figure out that traffic police are the major stakeholders, and if they are not on board in this entire process, the project may end up in failure. And hence they are very much part of this entire process. And Pune also has a very big public transport vision, where it is trying to revamp old buses and get these fancy new buses and also electric buses. It is a only city which is running around 150 electric buses today since last, I think it's already completed 1 year. And city is also trying to do the BRT. Of course, it is not part of today we are talking about NMT, but it is important to show that the city is vision is holistic and not just one particular sector or one particular project. And in this entire journey, the approach is totally participatory, where there is sometimes the city appoints agency for the stakeholder consultations and also reaching out to people. Sometimes they put up polling kind of a competition for deciding the bus graphic, etc. So that people should see that they are part of this entire journey. And this is a very important transformation which has happened. Like even if you have policy or even if you have aspiration to achieve that policy, If there is no money, you cannot implement it. And Pune has changed its budgetary approach as well. Like for example, Pune usually spends 800 to 1000 crore or just on the transportation every year. And before 2015, the trend was just to invest 10% or max 20% in walk, bus, and cycle. But for last 3-4 years, the city has changed its approach, and at least 50% is going in the walking, bus, and cycling improvement. And this graph is showing the expenditure, not just the aspiration. So in last 3 years, you can see how city has spent its money trying to. Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so this is all about pre-COVID mobility. I will also quickly take you through how the streets, these revamped streets look like. You can see the walkability has not been compromised anywhere. There are very wide footpaths where people and families can walk together. And the whole thing is, context specific, based on the land use, based on where there is street vendors, or whether there are some other requirements. And you can see it in the most of the, these projects are happening in various parts of the city, not concentrated just in one part. And as this started with people are important and not moving vehicles, it is also ensuring that whenever people are crossing, there has to be some traffic calming measures so that vehicle speed should be reduced and people who are walking should not be, in unsafe manner. You can see all this transformation which has happened in last 3-4 years, and even on the narrow streets the city tries to provide footpaths which are continuous, and even at the property gates you can see that the people can walk without changing the steps and without ups and downs. And this was like before a scenario of one of the streets, very narrow footpath, and now you can see the transformation. And this entire journey, the trees, especially for this walking, cycling improvements, no tree has been cut. So this is also a very important part, because whenever we talk about NMT, there is this tendency of saying, oh, but we need to widen the streets, we need to cut the trees, and we will replant them again. But here, with the qualified street designers, they have also accommodated trees quite in the design itself. This is the before scenario. You can see people used to walk below the footpath. The footpath was completely encroached, and now you can see the great transformation. And here again, there is no land acquisition has happened, but just the front margins of the shops have been merged with the footpath so that the space becomes huge and people can walk very nicely. Get some more glimpses. And I should tell that this has become a movement now, because some of the streets were not part of any program like Pune Streets program or the pedestrian policy, but the local corporators started saying that we have XYZ street in our area where you cannot walk. This is before a photograph of one of such street, and we need to enhance it. And through that constant push to the corporation, they are revamping streets in other parts of the city as well. So it has become a movement to ask for walking and cycling. And as in the opening session, Jan Gill said that winning back footpath spaces, winning back public spaces has become really a movement in the city. You can also see this was a earlier condition and it has become a wide footpath, and also considering the historical context of that particular street. The aspiration is also to make Pune a bicycle city. Once upon a time, it was a bicycle city. And you can see that a lot of cycle tracks are getting built across the city without restricting their movement and trying to have a continuity and width of that cycle track. And sometimes
can you please wind up? Can you please wind up in 1 minute?
Yeah. Sure. And these cycle tracks are also becoming great public spaces. NMT zones are surrounded with public spaces and greenery you can see everywhere. And this is also considering the urban poor, where there are some elements have been installed where you can see these kids are playing and they're enjoying the streets as well. So this is not just a fancy glamorous streets for rich people, but it is for all. And during COVID, everyone saw that in all our cities, the situation changed and there is less congestion on the streets. And we, of course, Pune also wants to achieve and retain that less congested streets. And as you can see from this Apple Open data, that the trend to walk is increasing after COVID. So now city has real opportunity to again go back to that and quickly revamp the street, scale it up, and complete 100 kilometers of street, manage it well, because there is parking policy, but the management is yet to be in place. City is, I should say that city is also inspiring many other cities, whether it is Chennai or whether it is Nashik or whether it is Pimpri-Chinchwad. They have visited Pune multiple times and they are trying to replicate it. So it has become a very good case and learn experience, a very good example for other Indian cities to follow. And of course, this aspiration is to bring back that glory where the public spaces became parking zones and dump yards. But now again, city wants to get back to it. And in this entire process, the entire ecosystem played a very big role, whether it is corporation or great civil societies culture, which the city has. And I'm sure that city will continue to expand it the same way. Thank you.
So, thank you so much for your very interesting presentation. I think some of the very important takeaways are that to ensure a good walkability environment in a city, Pune is a very clear example. And largely it is so because of the support which the government gives it to the programs of walkability. It's more like a participatory approach, a very consistent way of transforming pedestrian facilities. And I think it is one of the city which can be taken up as a reference city for other cities to actually improve their respective walkability plans. So thank you again. Now, it's my pleasure to welcome the next speaker, Mr. Gautam Sachdeva from Pradeep Sachdeva Associates. And
He's not joining. Sir, he's not joining.
So we have only 4 speakers in that case.
Yes.
Okay. So in that case, I move on to the next speaker, Mr. Vincent Lishar. He's from Swiss Consulting, and he is going to make a presentation on Kochi North-South Green Mobility Corridor. Mr. Vincent, please.
Yes, good evening. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share my screen. Can you confirm if my screen is visible?
Yes, it's visible. I think you can make it on the full screen. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to talk about our project in Kochi. It's a project made within the Mobilize Your City initiative that I think many of you know. And it's a program that is implemented in India with the French Development Agency. And we are partnering for this project with the Center for Public Policy Research, which is based in Kochi. And obviously, we're working with the Kochi Municipal Corporation. I must say that it is, for now, only a study, a project, but it is not validated or yet, but it is an ongoing thinking and I think a good project. So I will give an overview of the corridor to explain the place and the situation, give the objectives of the project, a short outline of the project. We have only 10 minutes, the main expected impacts, and then the conclusion. So if you know Kochi, there are 2 main railway stations in Kochi, distant for about 2.5 kilometers. Here on this picture, the north is on the left. It's quite close to the city center. Here we have Mahatma Gandhi Road, which is the main commercial street road in Kochi, and it's only 600 meters from there. But there is no street or road along the railway line here. You see there is a railway line between the 2 railway stations. It's a kind of backyard area, so not easily accessible, while actually there are a lot of people traveling along this corridor, a lot of pedestrians, but the pedestrians are mostly walking on the railway tracks, which is obviously not safe, not comfortable either, and not good for railway operations. There are some cycles, there are some rickshaws in the parallel streets, but the situation is not good. And it's also not good because it's not a safe area, not a secure area. It's difficult to manage for the city. All the more because it's a corridor where you have major facilities. You have a bus terminal, you have a stadium, you have a major hospital. So the goal is to open up the area, improving the connectivity, not only along the corridor, along these 2.5 kilometers, but also on the perpendicular streets to better connect this area to the city center. Some pictures to give you a view of the corridor, and well, it's obvious that there is a potential there, landscape potential, I would say. It's very green. The place is nice, can be nice, but you see also that it is dirty, very difficult to manage. There is a drain, partly covered. So in some places you have a dirt road. In other places, it's just the drain that is covered. You have a lot of electrical box and catenary poles for the railway infrastructure. This is how it looks today. So what is interesting, it is a mobility project basically, but much more than that. And the idea is that the good solutions can oh, I have a question there. Okay, let's see afterwards. A good project is a project that answers to various problems and find a solution that solves various problems with one project. And we have here a question of connectivity, so creating or improving links between the bus terminal, the railway and metro stations that I didn't mention, the access to the stadium, to the hospital, connection between the railway stations and links with the city center. But it's also a question of urban management, improving safety and security for all, cleanliness, better control and surveillance by authorities, improvement of the drains, and inclusion in the city. So turning, yes, step by step, this backyard area into a lively urban space, including social and economic activities. So really it's I would say, a holistic project. The project is developed through 4 components. One is the development, and the main one I would say is the development of a green corridor adapted to non-motorized transportation. Today, about 60% of the trips along this corridor are made by foot or by bicycle. So we want to target this population first. Then there is the development of e-rickshaw services. There is a lot of auto rickshaw services in the corridor. So the idea is to turn it progressively towards the more the greener version of the auto rickshaws, which is the electric rickshaw, which already exists in Kochi as a feeder to the metro. The third component is the development of hubs and connections to the city center. Through the development of public spaces where we have perpendicular streets, and in the same places, the development of social and commercial activities. Briefly, some design principles. So we want to develop the project as much as possible in the existing right-of-way, so it can be implemented rapidly. Even if there can be a longer-term project to create a real street all along, but there we want to adapt to the existing right-of-way, keeping the possibility of universal access to everyone, including people with disabilities, creating clear limits, fences to prevent people to walking on the tracks, on the railway tracks, development of vegetation, trees, and lighting. Lighting is the question of safety, of commodity, but also a question of beautification of the site. And creating or improving existing facilities or commercial activities with small buildings using wood and including shops, services, toilets, technical utilities. So it's, you see, it's also a landscape project. Along the corridor, there are some places where you have space. It's quite wide, so there we will develop plazas, as shown here, with activities and so on. And there are some of the places where it's very narrow. So the goal is to develop, well, pathways like that. You can see the before and after images there, and the cross section, and the way we propose to cover the drain with a better coverage, and to have a wider space for NMT. We developed also 3D models. As you can see, it's simplified. It's not fully realistic because it's a very upstream study. We didn't have a lot of budget and so on, but it was a way also to communicate the project and to show, because it's so important that people can understand what it is about and have a clear feeling of how it would like. I will show a small video in 1 minute. Okay, an extract of the illumination plan. So you see, it is practically have a good lighting, but also a part of the design and of the landscape. So some elements of evaluation. First, the frequentation. So we are targeting 4 categories of users. The present NMT users of the corridor who would continue to use it, but with much improved conditions. Auto rickshaw users traveling on the roads close and parallel to the railway corridor. A part of them would transfer to walking, cycling, or using e-rickshaws. And the e-rickshaws would be partly on the same corridor and partly on parallel roads where the corridor is too narrow. And we have also private vehicles and cab users who could transfer to greener modes. And last, people who do not travel along the corridor today because of the bad conditions and who would come and would use it when the project is constructed. So it's the so-called induced demand. So some figures here showing, well, the dimension of the project, what it could. It's quite a small scale project. We're speaking about 2 kilometers, but still it could impact quite a lot of people and really change the area. So some words of conclusion before showing the short video. This study confirms the feasibility of a green mobility corridor joining the 2 main railway stations in Kochi. The project could be implemented at short term with limited land acquisition, and it could be also easily constructed by stages. It would bring comfort, safety, security to the existing users, and will attract new ones, including people transferring from less green modes. And it would really considerably improve the urban quality and landscape of the corridor, and would help develop new social and economic activities. I didn't develop this part, but there is a real potential there. So the area would be better included in the city and better connected to the city center. So just to have a look of one of the videos. Okay, this is the bus garage of Kerala State Transport Company. Here, a place where we could develop a small square with shops here. And the place where we could have the e-rickshaws or auto rickshaws all along, and the pedestrian. And then this is the bus terminal and the rickshaw station, the stadium, and under the stands of the stadium, we think that we could develop new activities. You see the alignment of trees. Okay, so give you an idea of the project in the central section of it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vincent. I think you probably stuck to your time limit. I think I'm grateful to you. Now, I think it was a very interesting, innovative kind of a concept, looking into how a mobility corridor can be converted into a green mobility corridor with focus on non-motorized transport. And interestingly, there are a lot of transport interchanges on the route. And I'm sure this project also does take care of the safety of pedestrians who are trying to access these multimodal interchanges, because that also would be equally important. One of the very important point, I think, which goes without saying, is that safety and aesthetics probably you have tried to highlight, and I think that is very important for developing something which is a good walkable environment. And I think I'm sure once it sees the light of the day, I'm sure this project again would be a kind of referral project for other cities to emulate. Thank you, Mr. Vincent. We'll come back on questions and answers to you. Now, let me now move to our last speaker for this session today. He is Mr. Sergio Martinez. He is the Undersecretary, Secretariat of Mobility, Bogota, and he is going to talk on initiatives for NMT in Bogota. So, Mr. Sergio, please.
Hi, good morning here in South America. Good evening there in Asia.
So can you be a little louder, please?
Is it better like this?
Yeah, yes, please.
I'm just gonna take my headphones off. Sorry about that. So let me just go ahead, share my presentation. There you go. So thank you very much for the invitation again. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about cycling and walking in Bogota, especially in the midst of the COVID pandemic. So Bogota is, South America, capital of Colombia. We have about 8 million inhabitants, and we are the political and the economical center of the country. And for those of you that, work in transportation, work in city planning, maybe you're familiar with the Transmilenio BRT, which started here, and our ciclovia, which is when we close, hundreds of streets every Sunday and every holiday, take off the cars and just give the space to cyclists and pedestrians. And maybe you have heard about, something with Bogota and the bicycle. And we like to say that we have a love story with the bicycle. Starting, 50 years ago, when a group of citizens started, requesting more space for cycling in our streets. That's what translated into ciclovia. Then we got, Mayor Peñalosa, late 90s, starting to actually build dedicated cycling infrastructure. And then we got a bunch of different groups, a lot of culture, graffitis, carnivals, a lot of things about the bicycle. And lastly, we have our first woman mayor elected this year, which is really continue to push for the bicycle agenda here in the city. So we're really excited about that. And if we just look at the number of kilometers of cycle lanes in terms of the time span in the last 30 years, then we see how we are really growing and taking a deep push now with Mayor Lopez. And what that means is that with the latest mobility surveys that we have in 2019 before the pandemic, just within the city, we had almost 900,000 daily trips in bicycle and 1.2 million if you consider the whole metropolitan area. And one thing that we really need to improve is, the numbers of women cycling. Right now we have something like 24%, but our goal in the midterm is to get to 50%. And in terms of mode share, in 2019, we had almost 7% of people biking, which, if you compare it to car trips, which were about 15%, that means, for every 2 trips in a car, we have 1 trip in a bicycle, which we think is really good for a city of our size, but we really keep pushing it. Our goal is in the next 3 years to get to 10%. So in terms of infrastructure, we started with about 580 kilometers before the pandemic, and we're going to add another 280 in the next 4 years. And all of that is going to be, tied to our bicycle public policy, which is something that we expect to enact probably in 1 or 2 weeks. And what that means is that the city as a whole is committing with very specific goals, with budget commitments, something like $560 million to invest in bicycle until 2038. And so that's what we were planning, for the next 4 years until COVID came. And we started getting COVID here in Colombia late February. And so, it was good that we had some time to think about it, as opposed to you guys in Asia or in Europe. We had some weeks seeing what was happening there, but still, pretty much nobody knew what were we supposed to do. And the first thing is try to enforce social distancing. We did it in stations for BRT. We did it within our offices. We started doing really close monitoring of the occupation levels for our transit system, because the national government declared that they should not be over 35% of occupation. And that, of course, pushes into unknown lands, when you depend so much on your transit system, and then suddenly you have to take the people out, then it was very complicated. So we started pushing for even more for bicycle, for micromobility, setting up temporary bike lanes. And because we had really strict regulations for who should be allowed to be on the street to avoid the infection, then we also had to set up, police on street controls, and also, virtual monitoring of who was out. And we took an opportunity to decrease our maximum speed limit. So basically, the main approach that we had to take in terms of the mobility system was that we have to take people out of the buses. And, we're talking about a BRT system that moves something like 2.4 million people every day. And when you combine it with the regular feeder buses, we're talking over 4 million trips. So it was really complicated. And what we thought was, let's open in the same style that we do Ciclovia every Sunday and a holiday. We started doing that every day in many places, and we started doing, trial and error on what were the best corridors to do that. And what we did was basically try to mirror some of the BRT corridors and open parallel corridors, but for bicycles. So we took a lane for mixed traffic and just gave it to bicycles. And what happens is that we thought it worked, and because of that, we really, continue pushing it. So what you see in green are some of those temporary bike lanes that we opened for COVID that are now becoming permanent. The orange ones will continue to be temporary, which means that as opposed to having like physical hard segregation, we're gonna continue having the plastic New Jersey style kind of segregation. And the black ones will eventually become permanent, but as part of larger infrastructure projects. And what we found when we opened these temporary bike lanes is that a lot of people starting to, change to the bicycles. A lot of people like it. And the majority of the people that were using them were, fairly young people. And we had more women biking, which, of course, we thought it was really good. And even when the city was not even, open to full economic activity, we started getting back to pretty much 50% of bicycle trips that we had pre-pandemic. So compared to how open the city was, it was really good in terms of trips. We had some challenges, of course, because we were doing it with plastic cones and plastic New Jersey barriers. Sadly, we had a lot of theft on those. We have a lot of invasion by other vehicles. And something that we maybe didn't anticipate that much is that because there were less cars on the streets, they started going faster. And we started having more fatalities due to high speed in the streets. But overall, we think it was worth it to do this strategy. And we actually got some recognition in the news in different places. And we got a lot of support here from different, many different sectors of our city. So we thought it was, we were doing something good. So we continued it. So basically, the whole approach that we took for COVID in terms of mobility is that, of course, it's a tragedy. Of course, everything's really bad about this pandemic, but we try to really make this into an opportunity to reprioritize what we already knew that we were supposed to do, which was to promote non-motorized transportation. And like I said before, because we've been pushing for getting into emission zero, then we took the opportunity and lowered the maximum speed limit to 50 kilometers across the whole city. And of course, what we're going to do is we're going to continue moving towards becoming a bicycle city. This is what we have in our development plan, which means increased bicycle trips, continue increasing infrastructure, parking spots, having bike share system, and trying to move into getting into a 30-minute city, with green districts and green corridors. And what that means is that, we're borrowing ideas from Barcelona, from Paris, from San Francisco, and we are, Colombianizing these ideas. This is a sketch of a real neighborhood that we're working on a project that we're calling Livable Neighborhoods to really implement traffic calming and really make it a really, really nice, attractive and safe place. And in terms of green corridors, we're going to develop a set of corridors, and the first one being Ciclo Alameda Medio Milenio, which is something that is in progress and that we expect to have constructed by 2022. We're talking about 25 kilometers traversing the city. To really push, just to make Bogota a safer, more amenable and a great place, really, where people can just feel safe and thrilled to, happy to just be, cycling and walking. And in summary, we're doing all this because we just want our mobility to be safe, to be an enabler of opportunities, and to have a better travel experience for everybody. And what that means is to have considerations for time, cost, and quality in all the decisions that we make. We're doing this, for these guys because we think they deserve the best. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Mr. Sergio, for a very interesting presentation. I think you brought out how Bogota has probably handled COVID in terms of inclusive mobility. I think that's really, you have turned COVID into an opportunity for promoting non-motorized transport, including the case study of Green Corridor, which you presented. And I think it's the whole essence of the whole exercise is that, well, you can only achieve success if the local government is actually fully supportive of the kind of policies which is expected to be promoted by them. So thank you again. Now, I think we have just about, I think we have about, Kanika, about 20 minutes for Q&A.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any questions, or we probably will use this time to probably have some interactions? If we have questions, we can take them first.
Sir, till now we didn't receive any questions.
Okay. So I think what I would in that case take this opportunity to probably put some questions to our speakers here for their inputs. And I think one of the very important point which I feel that, and I think it has been brought out in Ms. Pranjali's presentation also, that we have been very, very biased towards motorized transport all along in all our mobility plans. And obviously this pyramid has to be inverted with more focus on non-motorized to start with, and then actually the personalized mode should be actually in the last. Now, while it is quite easy to kind of come out with such policies, sometimes it becomes extremely difficult to actually implement them on ground. I mean, it might be very easy for a policy to implement new town, because obviously there is hardly any development in terms of population. So the question probably is that, what do you think are maybe few key, let's put it, policy ingredients which would make a bicycling culture, something which the policy planners also will adhere to? If I can just ask maybe one by one, all of you, what three things you think are needs to be done in Indian scenario? We can start with Mr. Salil. What do you think could be done to promote bicycling as an inclusive mode, but at the same time a very, very important mode of commuting?
Yeah, so safety is the first and foremost, so one should have dedicated lanes along with safety, and of course the visibility, or as we say that the surveillance part of it, where they should be properly lighted and the eyes on the street, as we say. So the cycle tracks or the pedestrian pathways should be closer to the active areas where people feel safe. So that is the first and foremost. Number two is we must try, as Pune has done, that some I'm sitting in a very ideal place where I could provide for the dedicated lanes, and in the city, not only at the city level but also at the sector level, we have been providing the dedicated lanes for NMT, and therefore I have that opportunity. But when you talk of the brownfield ones, yes, we must find areas by reducing the motorized transport, and shifting from private vehicles to mass transit, and then from mass transit to the NMT. That's how. And then proper covering, because all weather movement is also very important. Therefore, some green covers and other covered areas, particularly in the weather like Naya Raipur, which becomes quite hot in summers, and it will be very difficult to move on bicycles in the day. So these are a few things where I would like we should work
Great.
on.
Great. Pranjali, if I can, what would you recommend? Yeah.
I think to start with, there are the three key things I feel is number one is the designing and the detailing of it. I'll not go how it should be, but of course it has to be done by the expert because it involves a lot of nitty-gritties. It's not just putting some engineering piece on the street. So number one is that detailing. Number two is participatory approach. Because if all the stakeholders are not on board, especially the traffic police, maybe the shopkeepers or any other, stakeholder for that matter, then there are less chances of the success. And number three is also discouraging the movement of private motorized vehicle. Because it's not just like encouraging NMT or public transport, and it's also not that after everything happens, then only we'll start parking management, etc. So we are not even talking about congestion pricing, which should be there ideally. But at least to start with, we can start with a very small thing of parking management, where there is just like 2 rupees charges. Most of the cities want to charge to the private motorized vehicles. Still, there is a lot of resistance. So I think these three things. One is the experts, designing by the experts, participatory approach, and discouraging movement of private motorized vehicles.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Vincent, your comments, please, on this, your views.
Yes, well, personally, I'm riding my bike every day to go to my office. So there is an echo. Maybe someone should mute his microphone. Okay. And there is 7 kilometers, and I do it even if it rains, even if it's -5, even if it's 35 degrees. So why did I do that? I was taking my bike from, sometimes once in a while, but now I do it every day, except in lockdown. And it's a question of infrastructure, actually. I really changed when the infrastructure was there, in a way that I could take my bike without feeling I was risking my life every day, and because it's nice and so on. So yes, obviously this is the number one reason. Second is probably having possibilities to park a bike with good, in safe conditions. So places where you can lock your bike. And in my home city and in many other cities, the increase of the use of the bicycle began with the ride bike systems where you can borrow a bike for just 10 minutes and leave it. And it is developing in India too, but really it was something that boosted, because 15 years ago, this bicycle in France was only for leisure, but no more seen as a transport mode. And this really helped. And it's also a question of communication, image.
Sir,
You are
Sanjog sir,
mute.
you're in mute.
Yeah, Mr. Seo, yeah, your advice. What do you think can be done? I'm talking with reference to Indian cities, please. Yeah.
Well, I think you were. But that you were pointing out to how why when I had the little chart talking about the number of kilometers, the faces that you saw there were the faces of the mayors, and that's really, really important. That the mayor here in Bogota, we've been lucky that the last two mayors were always not only talking about promoting bicycles, but they were riding bicycles themselves, and that helps a lot. So that people see that it's if some important figure can do it, then I can do it myself too. But have to go in that, because it's not enough to have this really nice vision and this really nice plan if you don't put money in your budget, right? That's all it matters. You need to put the money where your mouth is. If you don't do that, yeah, you can have the nicest vision and plan, then there's only so much you can do. And the other thing that is also really important is to try to do like a bottom to top approach, so that citizens are the ones demanding this. And whenever you have the car louder, right, and it always have a nexus to the politicians and to the media, and that's why you need regular citizens to just be louder and just saying, no, we want this. We as citizens want this, and that has helped us here too.
I think very, very interesting points probably made by all the four panelists here. I was wanting also to kind of highlight this point that, and Sergio very rightly said in his in his comments, that our budgets do not reflect the priorities which NMT is supposed to get. Now, my subsequent quick kind of query from all of you would be, I think Pranjali's presentation clearly brought out that Pune has been consistently kind of allocating budget, in their the urban local body for promoting NMT, but probably it is not happening all over the other places. So what can be done to kind of synergize this whole culture and probably put into the mind of policy planners and decision makers, either through a policy document or through some let's put it, I don't know what is the word, it can be some kind of a counseling informed decision to say that, well, NMT is something which is very important and we need to kind of apportion at least the proportionate budget which non-motorized transport deserves. Any comment, Pranjali? And maybe we can have quick round of comment from each one of you. Mr. Salil can come in.
Yeah, it's
How do we allocate?
Very good, very good question, and very good, in fact, intent. There are two things. One is this would not only help in reducing because environmental protection would also be in a way achieved. At the same time, health of the people will also improve. Health of the city would also improve. So in a way, we would be saving huge amount of money. What I propose is a portion of the taxes from the city should be earmarked, maybe 1%, maybe 0.5% to start with, and then it should be apportioned for this, and it should come as a statute or as a policy, as you have rightly said. And if we apportion that, then it will be used in that. So this could, at a state level or at the national level, we should incorporate this as a policy, So that would certainly help, and people will start thinking in terms of investing in NMT. That's my.
Yeah, Pranjali. Yeah, Pranjali. I think you are
mute.
You are mute. You have to unmute. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so policy is definitely important, but someone will have to, push for it. Maybe it could be the state government in many cases, or it could be the central government, or it could be the city itself. In case of Pune, of course, city itself, because of the lot of the civil society movements, and they pushed for it. It happened, but it will not the same case with all the cities. So I think state government will also have to play a very big role, important role in it. Then only I think cities will think about it very seriously. And second thing is, as you rightly mentioned, informed decision is very important. And sometimes, it is important to tell them that, you are not investing here and you need to invest. Because it's not that, any city is doing it purposefully. Sometimes it happens that you don't realize that you are putting a lot of money where you don't need to or you don't want to. And, you keep on continuing the same trend. Okay, last time I spent, 500 crores on the flyovers. Next year, I'll put 600 or something. But the moment you get this trend that, oh, okay, this year I'm spending 300 crores on footpaths. Next year I'll put it 350 or 400. So I think sometimes realizing this is also important. And if the state government or the national government can play a big role in it, I think it will be of great help. And I think it has to start also from the national budget, where we see the MOHUA's budget, which is not that much, because I recently also studied that how it allocates its money. Even in the MOHUA's budget, if it can reflect, it will be of great example for the cities and states to follow. Of course, MOHUA is putting a lot of money into public transport in terms of metros and different kinds of buses, but it can also be replicated in NMT sector, special NMT fund, so to say. Yeah.
On this, how to have a higher allocation of budget for NMT in urban local bodies. Mr. Vincent.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. Well, what I would like to say is very general, but investing in NMT is good value for money. It's not expensive, and you can have a lot of effects. About 50% of the trips in a city are less than 2 or 3 kilometers. So if you invest in that, it's you solve various problems and you touch a lot of people. So yes, it's the costs has nothing in common with a metro or a BRT. So actually, it's a financial solution, not an additional problem.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sergio. How did Bogota probably had a larger allocation? What was the story behind it?
Like I've been lucky that our last 2 majors really. We understand that that's not the case everywhere, and sadly, or maybe luckily, we know that politicians respond to what their voters ask them to do, right? And that's why I was talking about how important it is to have a bottom to top approach in which many different kinds of citizen organizations, organize, get louder, and start making it real, as opposed to just being one number in a voucher in some mobility survey. We really need to start highlighting and making more visible with videos and pictures, wherever the situation is not good, wherever is unsafe, really make it personal. And another way is that we really need to start putting more numbers. We really need to start showing what's the economic advantage of doing this. How much the city spends in because of the fatalities. Sadly, we probably have to put some kind of figure, the overall number of fatalities and in congestion, bad air quality. We really need to start making the case both with numbers and both through the politicians, because unless you do that, then it's it's going to be very hard. And one way that it's always helpful is whenever a higher level government like state or national government, sometimes they try to put an incentive and say, maybe if you put $1 here, I'll give you another one. That also helps a lot, especially with like mid-size and the smaller cities, which are probably not that things that what's happening in the big cities, and it helps a lot of governments working with organizations, non-profits, and the multilateral banks, and start sharing knowledge, and start sharing best practices, and start showing them the benefits that non-motorized transportation is going to bring to the city in terms of numbers, in terms of economy, in terms of safety, in terms of just better quality of life, you know?
Yeah, you're very right. I think until we show to the policy decision makers through, I think, to my mind, we need to have some research carried out to prove a point that, well, you were to use an NMT, this probably will result in much better advantages in terms of sustainability, let's put it, environmental benefits, social benefits, and even economic benefits. I think so. So we probably are in most of the cities in India lacking this kind of basic research to prove a point. Well, this is important. I think we still have 10 minutes. I just want to round up with a final round of a very brief intervention. We are talking about line haul mobility of cyclists. Obviously, they will vary from city to city. Bigger cities probably will probably have some kind of a last mile tied up to a line haul system, whereas smaller cities probably might have O to D, movement by cycling, where the cycling becomes a basic infra. Now, while we have talked about the basic cycling network, what do you think? Why Indian cities still has not really picked up the culture of public bike sharing? What do you think needs to be done? The government on its own side is promoting through policy intervention that we need to promote such kind of systems, but somehow when we look at the figures of public bike sharing in Indian cities, they're not very enterprising. So if I can have a quick round of comment from each one of them, what should be done? What should be done to kind of ensure that this public bike sharing system, which is to me a very integral part of last mile connectivity, along with the other non-motorized transport, how it can be made successful? You know, if I can quickly go around people with the speakers, Mr. Salil.
Very good point. In fact, we miss that culture. That culture is to be imbibed right from the childhood, you know. People start in terms of the two-wheelers, the mechanized transport, and in terms of four-wheelers. That is the concept, you know, when you brought up, things are like that, the young minds are like that. So this should be a part of the, you know, study or social studies or whatever is taught. What are the advantages of this? As you rightly said, social and finally economical also. The environmental, social, and then economical. So it will, you know, as we say that energy saved is energy produced. So the more you invest in bicycling, you are saving huge amounts of money which you are spending on health and environment and other economical.
Yes.
So what I personally feel is this should be a part of the basic studies in the primaries, and we should teach the people. There should be some sort of you know, encouragement from the government. The cost is not very expensive. One is the infrastructure you must create within the cities, whether tier 2, tier 3, not only tier 1. And you know, parallelly, the city governments and the state government should, you know, promote this as a future, you know, as a long-term policy where, you know, they keep on promoting and investing. As everyone said, the cost invested would not be much. So it's a very minuscule amount. It is the mindset, it is the concept of the people, which is to be, you know, encouraged and imbibed in the young minds. So once it comes, but I must appreciate after the COVID, people have taken up, like in Raipur, huge numbers have taken up to cycling. A lot of, you know, people have taken up, and now I see on Saturdays and Sundays, not only on daily basis, but on Saturdays and Sundays, people come out, but they don't use it as a last mile, what you said. So public bike sharing is certainly not successful. Maybe we should come up with a policy which is acceptable to all, you know, because digital payments are not that popular till now. If digital payments and were popular, I think this also would be one of the accepted modes of travel. We have not been able to do NCMC till now in the cities. So that also would help. So a lot of discussion could happen around, but ultimately, basically, it is all within, it is in the minds of the people.
Thank you. Pranjali, any comment?
Yeah. So I think in public bicycle sharing, there is one story that, in many cities, some international companies shut their shops. So I think in India also, Pune, Bangalore, they started with some companies, but because they shut their shop, businesses across the world, it couldn't get expanded. But another side of it is, of course, it was kind of non-binding memorandum of understanding kind of thing, not really a contractual thing, which shows that city, if city invests in it, if city wants to put money in it, I think it will make a huge difference. For example, when we saw in Pune, initially the trips per bicycle per day reached to 4. Ideal is 8. Just in some months it reached to 4, which is a good number to achieve. But as soon as they increase a little bit of fare, it went down to 2 suddenly. So it has got a lot of flexibility, and you cannot go beyond a certain point. And if the city wants people to ride bicycles, you will have to invest in it. So it could be in the form of subsidy. It could be in any form where you are encouraging people that okay, you ride it, and we will pay for it or whatever. Because the problem is that every time city feels that I mean it should be treated like a public transport where you have to invest some money. So it's again a public transport in a different manner, we can say, though it is a NMT in that sense, but it is form of a public transport also because it's a public utility. And the approach has to change that, public transport is a loss making, there are operational losses. I think every money in public transport is an investment, as against every money which facilitates private motorized vehicle is actually loss and expenditure, because you are polluting, you are again increasing more and more vehicles on the street. So it approach again tilting the pyramid also in this approach is important. So I think putting money and giving them strong backing of the government will definitely help to revive this public bicycle sharing in Indian cities. Thanks.
Vincent, any quick comment?
Yes, well, the bike sharing system can only work and be a success if the infrastructure is there again. And if the city is developed to promote non-motorized transportation, it's all so it's first a kind of cultural shift in the local governments, probably. If more and more, like in Pune, people understand the challenge and the opportunity and how it's the effect is so great with reasonable amount of money, then many things can change. And do not think that in India people cannot have the wrong culture for that. It was the same here 15 years ago. It can change really, and bicycle is the cheapest and most accessible mechanized mode of transport of all.
Sir, you're on.
Can you hear, Sergio? Yeah.
I'd just like to start saying an element, to promote bicycle culture in the city, but it shouldn't be a goal. The goal shouldn't be to have a bike share system. The goal should be to include it as part of a larger plan, and really try to understand your city and how it works. Do people live and where do they work? Because it's not like cookie cutter, it's not just copy and paste. And that's something that, for example, here in Colombia happened when we started Transmillennial BRT, is that the mid-sized cities just started copying the scheme and it didn't work, So it's a thing that you really need to develop as part of a larger bicycle plan. And for example, the Vision Zero road safety policy, it's always saying that it's based on, in English, what they call the 3 E's, right? The engineering, education, and enforcement. And in the same way, you should think about promoting bicycle, because it's not just building infrastructure and it's not just doing, cultural and promotional campaigns. You need to do the whole thing together. And so bike share is a really important element of a comprehensive plan, but it shouldn't be just the goal, because it doesn't mean that just by having bike share, it's really it's really going to push the city towards better bicycling.
Yeah, I think. Thank you. I think it was a very interesting kind of feedback from all our speakers here, and I think Kanika probably will have to wind up. I would just add up the points which to the speakers who have highlighted. I think very important, and I am particularly impressed with Puna's case study, that you need to have an ecosystem. If that ecosystem of people, budget, policy, continuity, to me these are three ingredients. You should have a local champion in a city. You should have somebody to push that agenda of NMT. You should have a policy in place so that the ULB, the state government is behind you, and there has to be a continuum. There has to be continuum. Even if the gentleman is not there, the successive gentleman has to support that program. I think if you have these three in place, to me, you will have many more Pune cities, example in Indian cities in times to come. And I think we need those examples because COVID has taught us one lesson, that you can't assume the mass transit to be given and NMT to be left aside. No, NMT probably will find its role somewhere down the line, and probably I would put it for short and medium trips, it would be a very, very important competitive mode of transport. I think with these few words, I would like to kind of end this discussion, and I would like to thank all the panelists, 4 speakers who brought out their experiences in their presentations, Mr. Salil Srivastava, Ms. Pranjali Deshpande, Mr. Vincent, and Mr. Sergio. We had an excellent exposition of case studies, and I'm sure all the participants would have enjoyed this event. Thank you so much. Back to Kanika.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gupta. It was very lively and interactive session, sir.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We will have now conclave session, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. We're going to report the